We've got an awesome lineup. It's our first episode of 2021, and we are going to focus on one question, as you know. What does the modern media plan look like in 2021? Next up, John Ruhlin is the leading authority in maximizing customer loyalty through radical generosity. He is the founder and author of Giftology, a system of using generosity to build relationships with new clients and generate thousands of referrals through empathy and kindness. He works hand in hand with organizations from UBS to the Chicago Cubs. Welcome, John.
Hey, Gary, how are you?
Good, John. My best friend, Brandon Warnick, he's going to be thrilled when he rewatches this because he is a big Cubs fan. So thanks for helping out there. John, actually, I think, unlike most of the brands that have been on here, give us the 1-minute spiel on exactly what you do, because I think that will help people. And then what I'd like to think about is the framework of gifting and what the media platforms are that give it some power to be able to do some stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in Ohio. I'm a farm boy, goat milk and farm kid from Ohio. And I thought I was going to go be a doctor to get out of Dodge. I grew up in a town of 400 people, but I had a mentor early on when I was 20 who was radically generous and built these amazing relationships and was kind of a referral machine. And I realized that in any business, it's all about relationships. Whether you're one person or a 10,000 person company, everything rises and falls on employee and client relationships. And so I realized nobody was teaching people how to be generous and to do it strategically. Most people would, here's an Amazon gift card, here's a bottle of wine, here's a whatever. And so I dropped out of med school and started an agency. And about 5 years ago, wrote a book called Giftology. We're the only one in the space. Everybody else sends stuff, but we're teaching people how to use gratitude and generosity and empathy really as a year-round thoughtful thing to do, not just to check the box at the Christmas time, like a lot of people.
Go figure.
Yeah.
The channels, like what should brands or startups or, entrepreneurs here be thinking about? What should they know about which media outlets give them a better chance to execute the thesis?
Yeah, well, I think that we're getting a lot of inbound of people reaching out, wanting to engage. You're talking about influencer marketing and different things. And I think a lot of people, they do things very generic and very vanilla, whether they're launching a book and sending out, 500 copies in vanilla envelopes, or whether they're, trying to get on podcasts or whatever else. And so I think that the focus for us has been going into, and I heard somebody else mention this earlier on, it's human to human, it's one-to-one. And I think that a lot of people have done too much stuff that's to the masses. And I think that, 2020 with the pandemic, I think people have realized that, hey, these are human beings that you're dealing with. And I think that a lot of people haven't realized until now, until everybody's at home and kids are running in and dogs and whatever else, that like, oh my gosh, they're a human being outside of whatever channel they're in. And so I'm seeing a lot more people reaching out and wanting to, like the traditional ways of building relationships, whether that's with mass media or whether that's at conferences or dinners, like the traditional ways have been blown up. And so people are struggling. How do I build connections from afar? I think a lot of people took for granted, like I'm going to be able to go to CES or the Super Bowl or whatever else. All of those building a relationship or engaging people is completely gone. And so we're seeing a lot more people that are doubling down on how can I take my top 2% or my top 1%. And similar to what you did with, I think you're talking about Taylor Swift. She can't show up at every wedding, but she can show up at one wedding. And you did it with the jersey. A guy spends $300 on wine or champagne or whatever, and you show up with a jersey. That becomes a ripple effect. People are. It's a story worth talking about, whether it's on Snapchat or Instagram, and you're seeing brands that are getting wise to leverage and say, hey, may not be able to do it for everybody, but let's pick 10 people and go all in on those people.
I mean, and this, after Crush It, which looks smarter and smarter these days, the next book I wanted to write was The Thank You Economy. I wrote that in 2010. I believe in this. It's in my religion. I don't even understand how I can't believe that people are, 2021, like we should do, how this is progressive thinking in 2021 makes me want to rip my eyeballs out and jump out this window.
Me too. I've been talking about for 20 years in a different vein than you have on social media. It's more like, if a relationship matters, how you show up for them in the valley, especially in a pandemic, is the time to double down on generosity. It's the time to show up and be extra bold with people.
John, do you agree that, I apologize, do you agree a lot of people fuck this up because they want the tactic for their business, and so because their intent is grounded in that, it kind of I think the reason this is such a challenging concept is that you have to have this incredible kind of like separation of the short term and the long term. I think what works for me, John, is I do all this kind of stuff all day long because I think in 67-year terms. And when people try to replicate it and I watch them, or when clients fuck up the stuff that I want them to do, it's because they care about the 67 minutes or days, not the 67 years. Thoughts?
Yeah, I tell people all the time, the long game is decades, not days. And if you do something nice for somebody and then ask for the referral or ask for the opening door or do whatever, that's not a gift. That's a manipulation. That's a bait and switch. Correct. And so people can tell. I tell people all the time, like, if you have the wrong energy when you're doing something for somebody, then even reading between the lines, you can tell when somebody does something or they do almost go too far. And then when like you can tell that you're being bribed. Like there's a difference between being thoughtful and bribed.
Gary, I'm going to do you a huge favor. I'm going to pick you up at the airport and take you to your hotel. But that's grounded in, hey, I need to pitch you my business, bro. So like, they're like, I'm going to help you buy the jets if you give me $1 million to start this company. And then the biggest one, John, I don't know if this has ever how this crosses over in your world. This gets into a very deep feeling I have around people who say, I always get walked all over. And I talk to a lot of these people and I say, are you getting walked all over? Or were you giving as a manipulation tack? Because giving is giving on the other person's terms, not on yours. And I see a lot of people crying, Gary, I don't like being nice. I'm always walked all over. And I'm a weird guy. I go deep with them, and I do this 20, 50 times a year. And 99% of the time, they weren't being sweet. They were trying to manipulate a situation by giving somebody something they didn't want because they wanted something in return. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, it's like the book Give and Take. There's giving, taking, matching. Most people are matchers that want to be a giver, but they're playing in the matching world of like tit for tat. I do this for you, then now you have to do this for me. And I think you've talked about it. Like your jab, 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 right hook was you give, 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 give. Then you earn the right to maybe ask, but it doesn't. Right. It does not give you the like if you keep score and get pissed off. And I tell people all the time, like I'll do things that like we sent somebody a sauna as a gift. I didn't ask for anything, and it didn't pay off for literally years later. But it wasn't because I asked for anything. He was inspired. And I think there's a difference between, and I think that's where most people with gifting, they're not really doing gifts. What they're doing is it's a carrot and stick. It's a incentive. It's a reward. Correct. And whether it's for your spouse or whether it's for your biggest client or whether it's for an influencer, when you do things with the right intention and no strings attached, and then show up again, and then show up again, and then show up again, you start building the social bank account. It's like with your spouse. If you show up with a gift and then ask for something 5 minutes later, it wasn't a gift. You were trying to get something.
It was a ticket. It was a cost of entry. John, It's exactly right. John, I swear to God, you're talking. You know what fires me up? I do a ton of this shit. I'm more excited when it doesn't pay out.
It makes for a better story. It makes for a way.
But you know this because, I don't even I just love it because it speaks to the merit of the truth of the intent.
Well, if it worked every single time, then it wouldn't really be like we're emotional beings, and what people don't understand. And that's why agencies or big companies sometimes have a hard time with like playing the long game of you're going to love on all these relationships and then not ask for anything. And they were like, well, what's the date on that? And I'm like, well, it could pay off this way or it could pay off 10 years from now. You say you're playing the long game, but are you really willing to make deposits year after year, quarter after quarter in your employees, clients, suppliers? And the answer is most of them, they want to say that they're playing the game in decades, but really they're playing it in quarters because they're a publicly traded company. And they're like, if I go take my marketing budget and I slice off $5 million and go invest in all these people and it doesn't work, then my head rolls and I'm out of a job. And so most people are positioning themselves to play the safe thing, and leveraging generosity with all these relationships is a weird concept, and it's a freaky one. But if everybody was really good at thoughtful gift giving, it wouldn't work. It would just be noise.
It's the least weird, this is the most human. Be a fucking good person. Funny shit happens. Go figure.
I know.
All right, brother. Thanks for being on. Continued success.
Hey, thanks for having me.